Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, and it's also uploaded on the YouTube channel of Zenitsu, on top of being on several podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. Please feel free to leave a rating, like, follow, subscribe, or review, depending on the platform you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast. So today I am back with my teammates from Team Blank, which is Nikki, Headless, and Guardian, and we are going to be talking a lot about BT16 and the early meta direction, because BT16 has officially started. Yay! Yay. So despite our somewhat lack of enthusiasm, BT16 just started, so we got a lot to go over. We have about technically four events worth of data to look at. But before we dive right into that, let us just start with the question of the week. And the question is, what Digimon deck do you think deserves more support? Because I feel like BT16 was meant to be a big support set. It's supposed to be there to just upgrade a whole bunch of little things and possibly create even more stuff. So usually in Digimon set design, they kind of do one of two philosophies, which is either let's create new crap or let's try to update old crap. I'm using crap very disingenuously because usually those are just the only two directions that they go in. So where do you guys want to see more support? I know we know a couple of sets in the future in terms of themes, so what do you want to see? Nikki,
I'm
I
just gonna
already...
go
Why
and
don't you
say
tell
it.
them about what you're always hoping for?
Dark Knightmon.
Dark Knightmon Rush Blitz. Please, if they can give it to Dino Beamon, they can give it to me. I won't do anything negative with it, I promise.
Yeah, Dark Knightmon having Rush sounds pretty scary because he's already a very sticky body that just...
He's gonna die, and then I'm gonna put a blocker, and that's it. Like, it's fine. It doesn't break the meta. I promise. Let me have it.
I could see that. I mean, I don't know if I agree with it, but I could see it. What
It
about
just
you?
does seem a little unfair that like all the rest of the real cross stacks had rush base, so just a
That
little
is...
unfair. But
Yeah, well, actually, I was thinking, wait, did Bagra have Rush? And yes, Bagra did have Rush. They had one card
they
that
had
did it.
Blast, yeah.
Yeah, Blast had Rush. So, yeah, it's the only real cross-based deck from Cross Wars that didn't have Rush. Interesting.
I want Justimon support. I need my Common Rider X Antibody, and a reason to actually play our character tamer.
Yeah. That's a very popular one. I know everyone's waiting for him. He's like one step away from being really good, and Bandai just refuses to give him his cards. What about you, Headless? Are you stuck on the Masty train?
Oh,
Not Headless.
Or
Guardian.
Guardian? Yeah. What about you, Guardian? You stuck on the Masty train?
Guardian?
I think he's just being shy. That's okay. I already know Guardian really likes Mastimon, and I know he's going to be getting some really good support in BT16. Or not BT16. We're in BT16.
EX6.
EX6. But according to Japanese data, the deck really doesn't do anything, so it needs even more support. So I don't exactly know what it would need, but, it needs more, apparently. And then as far as decks that I want to see support, that's pretty hard. I play a lot of decks as is. I already know like some of my favorite decks are getting support, so I guess I'm just gonna default back to Garurumon because Agumon gets all of the love, and I know every single time they print Garurumon, he's like 5 times stronger than Agumon. So just give me some more Gabumon stuff and like Garurumons, and I'll be happy. Just make him good again, and don't make him broken. Like make him
sadly
fair.
betrayed you.
Yeah, make him fair this time. Like fair but good fair.
His newest piece, right? We see is Elm. It's the LM3 Bond, but his is the weaker out of the two.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which is surprising. Oh, you're back, Guardian.
Yep.
Outside of Mastimon, what deck do you want to see get more support?
Outside of Massey?
Yeah, I already
Um,
answered it for you, so give me a different answer.
well, shit. That's actually a tricky one then. I'd have to go with Demon Lords in general.
Demon
Because yes, we
Lords?
are yes, the more general topic of Demon. Because yes, Demon Lords are gonna get their stuff here in EX6. However, that only really applies to like 5 of the 7. Lilith and Barbara don't really hold a place in the actual archetype right now. So I think getting some ones that substitute like the others would be great. And then maybe another option that works well with Gate.
Okay. I can see that. Like, just.
Lilithmont's kind of getting her own deck. I think has been the problem. Is that's why she didn't end up getting to be like fully part of the archetype. Like, sure, she's still
No,
a
she
name.
has much like the Levia and Lusamon decks. Lilith does have a deck that's actually topping right now over in JP meta.
Well, I mean, it's starting to do something, so that's a good trajectory. But yeah, like just a more in archetype 2 gate Lilith wouldn't have been a bad
Lilith
thing.
and Barbara.
Yeah. Because Barbara, they tried to start, like, they tried to make his deck, and then it's just like, no.
I
Like,
think the problem with him is that like the mechanic they want to focus on is a really hard balancing point where if you give them too much ability to rip cards out of your opponent's hand, he becomes very unfun to play against.
Mhm.
yeah, it just turns into another Apocalypse situation where it's just like, you think you have a deck? Ha! No. You don't got a deck to play with. Yeah, I could see that because people want to play with their cards, and one of the most hated mechanics in Magic: The Gathering is discard, and then another one is mill. Shocker, right? People like having the cards to play with. Um,
And the third one that they hate is the affinity category.
well,
Eldrazi
so
tell people for that.
I mean, Magic players just hate cheating on the resource system because they know how important the resource system is, and then the second you start cheating on it is when the game breaks. And Digimon, unfortunately, is hitting those very easy design mistakes where it's just like, yeah, let's start gaining memory for digivolving. That sounds fair, right?
Oh,
Uh,
let's continue playing our turn despite it being our opponent's turn.
Well,
Lucamon drop.
So Fenry, the balance of that is you're gonna have to give the opponent more memory than one.
On average, than you
Yeah.
do.
So like that's the give and take. Like when there is just straight up no give and take, like that's when you really start to see shortcomings, because I kind of laid that out as like a little video where it's just like there's needs to be balance. Like you could have good stuff, but it needs to have a counterbalance to it. Like aces, Blast Digivolve is great. The counterbalance is Overflow.
That's
Fenry,
why we
yeah, Fenry continuing the turn, even though the memory passed over to 0. That's great, but you're giving the opponent at least 3, if not more, memory, which is more than what most decks would generally want to try to give. So,
yeah. Current the one that is going to be a problem, I know, and this is way off subject. Is going to be heavy, because heavy is going to be able to cheat out the Megidramon Ace and basically allow Gallantmon Ace for practically nothing.
Oh, the X7 discard dragons.
Yeah.
they don't look that good. I'm going to spoil
They
it.
honestly don't
They,
look great.
they really
No.
don't. I'm very.
All of their power is
It's
situated
Beltramon
in
with
the
extra steps.
is situated in the top end. It's heavy metal, and it's what is it called? Loudmon?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where all the
Should have
power
been
in that
called
archetype is
Burstmon or
situated, sadly.
Boomboxmon.
Yeah.
But
Instead
even
of
then, like, I just
Loud.
see it as like, cool, you can get to like your 6 quickly, but what do you really do aside from having like 8 bonus DP? No, sorry, 6 bonus DP on the climb. What do you
Well,
really do?
that's so that you're Emperor and Greymoning things, right? So you're effectively getting to do that, where on average you're
You can't, because remember, Emperor has to have a hybrid in the deck.
no. But Heavy doesn't. That's what I'm
Oh,
saying.
okay.
Heavy just does it on Evo. He does the same effect as Emperor, where it's DP based deletion based on your own DP.
Oh,
which means that in most cases you win out. But like the problem is that what does that matter into a meta where Magnamon X is immune to things and so doesn't care? Like
Immunity is another
Or
problem
yeah.
that's
No, immunity is
right
always a
now.
problem and it needs to have some sort of like balancing to it. Like they did a pretty decent job early
That's
on with
that's why with Tyrant it's great because it's balancing act is it can't protect against option. Magna is the problem.
well, so
yeah.
Magna is an absurd card, but I don't think that they're going to be hitting him specifically
Oh
because
no, they
one,
won't
he's a
hit him
secret
because
rare
it's
and
too
he's
minimum.
driving the set sales. And two, it's
He's
the
too
cards
minimum.
around Magnamon that's making him even better than he reasonably should be. Because in the yellow vaccine stuff, you have obviously the yellow vaccine engine that's making it so you could go into Magnamon for basically off of one memory and still maintain turn. And then on top of that, you also have the Vmon stuff, which the starter deck Magnamon is like an insanely overtuned card for what it actually is. That card's so good.
hmm
And Vmon already was pretty low to the ground aggressive, and now you're just adding like a indestructible top piece to it. So it's just like, oh, I'm already a very aggressive deck. Sure, give me defensive tools and more aggression at the same time. Yeah. Um, but yeah, it's just the cards around him. But before we get into like some of the other like more minute topics, we got 4 events to talk about. We had a PPG, uh, 2 PPG win cases, which are actually split cases. One of them was online, one of them was in person. The in person has, for whatever reason, the top 16. The online has top 8. So just going over that really quickly. For the PPG online event, we have first place Numemon, second place Mirage, third place Fenry, fourth place Rapid, fifth place Magna, sixth place Fenry, seventh place Magna, eighth place Imperial. So as far as top 8, we had 2 Magnas, 2 Fenrys, 1 Numemon, 1 Mirage, 1 Rapid, and 1 Imperial. This is a pretty decent spread, and this is probably the spread of decks that people would expect the meta to be. So I honestly think like this just is the meta. Like these are probably the core foundational decks. Whether how much of them topped or whatever is kind of irrelevant as of right now because the fact that all of them topped in this event specifically really went to highlight where the current direction of the meta is. And we're not going to go into any of these lists specifically because these are the cornerstones. If we do, we'll go into them later. But yeah, I played in this event. I got 13th place. I was on Mirage. I think Nikki, you played in this event too.
The winning
Yeah,
case
the
one.
the
I
PPG
dropped
win case.
X3. I got really freaking sacked early on.
Yeah, this event really taught me that like Mirage is fine because I've been playing Red Hybrids and Mirage for literally like the past year. And I like what Mirage does. It's just Mirage has some very, very polarizing matchups. Like, if you see a deck that has a good level 6 ace that can shut you out of the game, if you can't deal with whatever Digimon they're going to be spawning that ace from, you are just host. Period. So like
Mm-hmm.
Imperial as an example, they get up into Imperial, you're host. Like you can't use your training cards because that's digivolving by effect, and then they'll ruin you. And that slows you down, and you also
You have
can't
to go into
attack.
Mirage for the full price. Try to like the way to do it is you have to go to Mirage with the rebates, like all your mem gains to keep your turn, and then pray you burst mode, and then you have to deal with partition, but that's fine. But it's either like I on my turn I keep my Mirage, I burst mode, and I deal with your Dragon mode so it doesn't become an ace and become a threat. But even then they have 2 level 4s, and you're like, I need to control the board. But I know for a fact you'll have a Pilgrim on the moment I give you your turn back.
Yeah, and like it's not even just that. Like if they get into their Imperial, you're already going to have a very hard time if you're not set up properly or if you just weren't able to be out their be out their level 6 with your level 6 before you could get there and win that race. The fact that partition's a thing, so bouncing it to their hand is actually really bad, because if you then can't get rid of the residual bodies, they're just going to re-DNA for free, and literally nothing happens. In fact, you're even at a deficit, because their new Pyildramon just says you can't OTK me. So, like, that's just an example of a polarizing matchup. Rapid is even more negative, because now they can actually be more proactive with a good level 6 that they could use, that you could still ace over, and the fact that they literally just play their level 5, you can't touch it, means that you already can't do anything, and that also is a pretty feels bad. And then Numemon has a level 6 ace with Valk Ace, so if you literally can't get rid of all of their level 5s, because they could spawn them pretty easily, they could just sit there and just be like, okay, you could swing Valk Ace, and then you die because Valk Ace just hits your numbers in such a way that it's unavoidable that you're going to be dying. So it sucks. It's rough out there if you are a Mirage player running into a deck that uses a good level 6 ace. And that's not even including Vike Ace, because Vike Ace just on swing de-digivolve, but blue doesn't exactly, or black, play a whole lot of good protections against Mirage to really warrant Vike Ace being a huge problem. But yeah, so that is kind of just our little early onset of where this event was. And this was a 6-round event, 50 players. And yeah, so going on to the next PPG event, that is the MomoCon event. So MomoCon, this is basically another win-a-case, same numbers, 50 people, 6 rounds. And MomoCon, the top... God, I hate their website sometimes with that banner. MomoCon...
They made their banner way too big.
Yeah, MomoCon, the top 16 breakdown was 5 Numemon, 3 Mirage, 2 Rapidmon, 1 Imperial, 1 Secon, 1 D-Police, 1 Fenry, 1 Millith, and 1 Belphimon. So it's a little bit more spread and a little bit more diverse. We are seeing a lot of Numemon here, considering Numemon is the #1 represented deck in here. But this being a in-person event at 50 players basically makes it like a double super locals. Like, I would consider a super locals around like 25, 30 people. So this is just almost double that. So it's a good medium-sized event, but in these smaller events, I do think that more niche decks can do well, considering first place was Security Control, second place was Mirage, third was Numemon, fourth was Mega Gargo, or no, it was Mirage, fifth was Imperial, sixth was Mirage, seventh was Nume, eighth was Rapid, ninth was D-Police, D-Police, not D-Brigade, we'll get into that later, 10th was Fenry, 11th and 12th was more Nume, 13th was Rapid X, 14th was Nume, 15th was Millith, and 16th was Belphi. So that was the MomoCon event, and again, it was 50 players, 6 rounds of Swiss, and this was in person, so congrats to all those who topped, and yeah, like I said, I think that in this event, more niche decks are able to win just because of the size of the event. So Security Control ended up winning. We actually have the Security Control list. We have all of the lists, by the way. So it just looks like Security Control to me. Like, I honestly don't see anything different that this deck is doing compared to other Security Control decks outside of the inclusion of Valkyrie Ace. That is the only thing that I see different. So... Oh, and Mimi. So this deck is also running Mimi. That's also a thing.
Mimi's fairly common in SetCon lists, and she's all turns whenever an option gets used. So
yeah,
it still works out of like security options, which is kind of silly. Just helps you make sure that if you're playing the purple removal pieces, you're consistently able to see one of your purple tamers by running that and Akari.
Yeah, and she's a cheap tamer too, so taxing the opponent's like boosts and trainings are still really good. And then Digimon Emperor obviously is like anti-Nume, or, well, it is kind of anti-Nume tech. It's more anti-Uko tech, where it's just like, it's really punishing the opponent for utilizing rookies, which a lot of rookies have, like, start of main effects. So we want to use rookies, but Digimon Emperor says, I'm going to tax you for doing that. So I get where they're coming from with that, and yeah, it just looks like security control. It's just annoying. So maybe the players weren't necessarily ready for security control, or security control just dodged all of its bad matchups, because I do think it has more bad matchups than good matchups at this point. And I already talked ad nauseum with Teddy about security control being a deck that forces errors. So like, it just tries to open the opponent up to more mistakes, so that way they can try to punish and capitalize on it. And the deck really doesn't have that great of win conditions outside of stall, because recovery just does nothing but stall, and they're not running enough Digimon to actually deal damage consistently.
Yeah, just want to remind people that if you're running Digimon Emperor, it is not once per turn. So if your opponent is doing Louis shenanigans to raise their Digimon multiple times, you'll gain 2 every time, as long as it's 3. A level 3 Digimon, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah, so nothing really new to talk about with security control. I know a lot of people with Digi Police are kind of like mixed on what they should be doing. I personally still think D Brigade's Digi Police is better, but this person obviously is proving me wrong with just Digi Police, and they're actually using the full Ryuda line. So that's something interesting. But again, I think like because of the size of the event, it allows, with the less round count, less overall players, bringing more competitive stuff. It also was at the very beginning of BT16, like literally launch weekend, so people might not have had enough product to be able to fully build everything that they wanted. So that also can go into like certain decks being able to find success. Not saying the deck isn't bad. I'm just saying, like, I don't necessarily think past this we're gonna see a whole lot of Digipolice.
The devil's advocate here. From what I remember, I think the Ryuda line adds a bunch of stun until the end of opponent's turn to the D-Police. So it might also just be the fact that, like, I need to double check the D-Police cards, but I feel like the Oryu and the Ryuda just say, yeah, you don't untap. And against Magna...
that's not what they do. They suspend.
Yeah, they suspend and try to keep you from unsuspending.
They do have a lockdown.
Yeah, but it depends on when the lockdown ends.
Yeah.
It depends on when the lockdown ends, because if the lockdown ends, like, until the end of your next opponent's turn, like, you get to technically tell the Magna, oh yeah, unsuspend step, you don't unsuspend. Because if my turn ended, you're back to being affected by my effects. You can't unsuspend now. Have fun. I need to double check the D-Police though.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll do that, but like, I feel like because it's green, there has to be either like, so you don't unsuspend or they do that.
They have suspension effects on most of the inheritables, and then they have goal-wide tools. So that's the main thing for them.
Yeah, and then they could just create a whole bunch of blockers
out all of the
too.
D-Brigade like solo things, so everything is the dual tag. So you can just kind of swarm the board that way with them. And they technically end up being a more aggressive body, because the Brigs, you a lot of the time have to end turn on, whereas you can cheat out the level 6 from the 5s.
And yes, it is stun until... They can't unsuspend until the end of their turn. So it would keep the Magna stunned to prevent him from being useful, which means you could try to find an opportunity for the protection to fall off and counter him. So it seemed like this was just a pretty decent idea to try to counter Magna in some capacity, just because lingering effects are really good against Magna, and Magna is definitely one of the driving forces for how this format is shaping up.
And it's a no, I see how they did it. The Ginryu is an on play. Yeah, you just loop that with your egg and the as you guys said, the Brigade and the Oryu. Just keep looping the Ginryu, and the Magna will never unsuspend.
Well, the problem with that is the moment that you touch security, it gets its...
Yeah, it falls off, but you remove it before. Like, you literally could sit there, just wait, and then if they can't remove...
Builds,
yeah.
Plus, the Magna, like, you have to force the Magna to touch its own security, because they're not going to touch yours unless they like promote and rush, and then you go, okay, I'm deep, please, I'll just block you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you have to make them touch their own security, which then puts them in the worst spot, because like, if you have to touch your own security, you're probably going. The only card that does it is like,
It's little TK and blinding ray generally.
blinding ray. So you have to look at your security and try to put something you don't need in your hand at the moment there, or
Probably
you need to
easiest
blinding
one
ray
to
and just
trigger
take it.
Yeah, unless they're yellow base and then they're using the egg where they swing, trash a security,
Yeah.
gain a memory.
They're now on the egg. They weren't on the egg at the start.
Yeah. But another cute, cheeky deck that I still kind of like, based on literally the last format, we saw a total of 1 Millith, and here is another Millith. Like, it's a deck that could still perform, but I honestly don't think it's a consistent enough topper to make me feel confident to want to take it competitively. This deck literally is doing almost nothing we haven't seen before. It's just trying to do the whole, like, I'm going to set up this big combo using all my delays and just straight up mill you out with all of my when Digivolve on play, mill whatever, and then they're using the Ghoulmon instead of Creepymon. Some people kind of go back and forth in terms of what they want to see to try to mill. And they're just this person's on Ghoulmon just to try to mill them out. Gain security attack plus. I don't think that matters, but it also has Ruin Mode to try to stall them a turn, but the deck already was on that. So it just is the deck. It's just a mill deck. Like, I don't know what to say. It literally didn't even change. And then the last unique deck from the PPG in-person MomoCon event is Belfmon. And I'm actually shocked this person is not on 8 Ukamon. Like, I get it. Floodgates are good. Fosco is good. Impmon's good to try to grab back your Demon Lord pieces. But, like, I honestly think 8 Ukamon is just where this deck really wants to be. I don't necessarily think it needs the Demi-Devis. The Kaiser's kind of cute. Ogre seems pretty good too, because you don't need the rookies.
Floodgate removal piece, yeah.
Yeah, so like a lot of this stuff just seems like it's making sense, and then some of it just is like, oh, I guess sure. But yeah, Belfie's still good. Sleep mode protects himself, and then Rage mode comes out, wipes everything, and just goes ham. And he can hit pretty big numbers somewhat easily.
He gets stuck at 17, sadly. There's not a way to get him past that, but 17's still decent numbers.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that he could just, like, hit really hard, he has good removal, he's using Ukomon, and he has good floodgates. Like, it just seems like a deck that, like, people are just kind of writing off and think is underrated. Because they are using the new Demi-Marimon egg from BT16 that lets you just discard a high level. Yeah, you discard a high level, and then you just draw 2. So it's faster cycling.
The one thing I see is that this person's not on Raremons, but Raremon was taking up a fair bit of deck space in a lot of Belfamons that were actually doing well. So it's good to see that, you don't need,
The
4
$40
of
price
a
card.
40 color, promo card.
Yeah. I mean, there's still, if you were running 8 Ukamon, that's still like $40 though. So, but I guess $40 for 8 Ukamon, or like 4 promo Ukamon, and then you'd still need to spend like $2-3 per BT15 Ukamon.
Yeah, I mean, luckily
it's still
they were
comparable
accessible for a time. Since like if we're talking old promo Ukamon, you could get them in the demo decks. So hopefully people took advantage of that product while that was around.
Yeah, and those Ukamons were cheap, just because demo decks were plentiful, and now they're not. So now it's becoming more expensive.
It's a $5 rare, but if you're buying packs, if you're buying product, then there's a chance that they're just there. They're rares, so
Yeah.
it's not so bad. But I get you.
Yeah, I think the inclusion of Omnimon's Zwart Defeat is pretty good, considering how aggressive certain decks want to be. Zwart could just come out of nowhere and just be like, hi, I'm just gonna be annoying. And it's kind of like that Death X, where it's just like, if it comes out early enough, it could just be annoying enough to really kind of just put unnecessary pressure on the opponent to try to respond. And then that's when Belfmon could just take advantage of that and just try to counter that. So
Nick remembers when I played the Zwarts against him back in old-fashioned security control.
yeah.
Sometimes I really just want to just put my hands around your neck sometimes.
This tragedy of the tragic, the
Bro,
trauma
there's
I
no,
caused you.
I hate Sakon as a deck. It's just not fun. I
Uh,
would rather
I
play Yellow Hybrid.
I feel you, man. I
I played that against
100%
you
feel you.
too.
Yeah, but I respected you on Yellow Hybrid.
Yeah, but also being able to pop tamers right now, I think, is like also kind of important
Mm-hmm.
because like, oh, you have Digimon Emperor, or Louis, or something trying to give you passive value. Being able to snipe that passive value could really set the opponent behind. Granted, it's when you digivolve up into them and they're not running any supporting level 6 to just do that, but if they feel like, oh, my Belfmon's not going to be really gaining any whole lot of value, let me just digivolve into a Zwart and then just hope my Zwart dies to get both of the effects, the when digivolving and the on delete. Like, it's still not bad. But yeah, Belfmon, good. Using Ukamon to try to help hard carry the deck because the new Ukamon is also a good searching tool. Really shows the strength of the change in direction based on the few new cards that were introduced in BT16 and slightly BT14 because of the training cards. They're not running any training cards, but regardless, yeah, game warping cards are game warping cards. So that brings us to TAC. So TAC had an event as well. It was also 6 rounds, 77 players, and the top 16 breakdown is 3 Numemons, 3 Mirage, 3 Magnamons, 3 Yellow Vaccines, which are also Magnamons. 2 Imperials, 1 Lucamon, 1 Red Hybrid, 1 Tyrant. So again, kind of like taking a look at that first PPG event with those like 6 decks. This basically is just almost mirroring that for the most part. Just again, the distribution is a little bit different based on like how the event actually played out. So in this event, Numemon was able to take first place. So yeah, that's going to probably be a common trend. Second place was also Numemon. Third place, Lucamon. Fourth place, Yellow Vaccine. Fifth place, Mirage. Sixth place, Mirage. Seventh place, Magnamon X. Eighth place, Numemon. Ninth place, Mirage. 10th place, Red Hybrids. 11th, Magna. 12th, Imperial. 13th, Yellow Vaccine. 14th, Magnamon. 15th, Imperial. And 16th, Tyrant. So we do have a couple of interesting, unique decks from that event. Oh, that's not it. So we had Tyrant. Nikki, I know you were pretty hot on Tyrant before you decided to give it up because Mirage just says you're not really a deck.
It's a lot of factors. It's just the fact that I thought Grand Quagamon was stronger than he was, and now that Grand Quagamon literally says, if you're playing blue, you get to just go off to the races and I can't stop you, it does make it a little bit worse to deal with.
Yeah,
Just
so...
Blues on suspend being able to keep triggering against Tyrant just really... The only way to stop it is to, like, regular Quagamon, which is $30. You don't really need it aside from DP for the DP wars. And, like, by the time you drop it, like, they've already kind of done their stuff, so you're just dead. Yeah, you're just kind of like, I could, but, like... Why don't I just set up a Tyrant play and then they go BT13 Mock, I'll just make me undirectable. Or they go into Magnamon and just wait you out. You can't swing at them, or you try to suspend them, but they're like, oh no, I'm immune. And then we're playing DP Wars until someone screws up.
Yeah, so I think this list more specifically is kind of on the interesting side, because, like, you already knew Shiva was good because the deck one weakness to Tyrant is options. Shiva can shut that out. You were right about the Argamon. Yeah,
that's
you were.
One problem with it.
I mean, you're not stopping security options anyway, but ideally you're trying to burn their security, except they're not running anything
like
to
Shiva,
burn.
if you end of turn Tyrant swing and then activate the second effect to suspend Shiva's unsuspends itself and then trashes their security. So like, you don't necessarily like this list isn't on piercing level 4s, so like like Shiva is your win con to a degree. Because they can't use options, so they can't sustain you. They have to, like... I mean, if it has more sources, they have to hard drop Zudo against blue. It makes it a little bit worse. But it's just the fact that no options, I'll burn your security every turn, and then Tyrant says, like, whatever you leave on the board, I'll get rid of it. The Argamon and the Cherrymon, I was already on the Digizorb train of, like, the deck's one weakness, which Honcho felt really early on, is that you take a minute to get there. You only have Kokabu Terriermon. This list is playing the Kunemon, but a lot of lists aren't, so you're just playing like Mirage level consistency tools of like your one rookie searcher, your training's your option, and your mem boosts, and that's all you have to try to find your pieces. So a lot of time, and there's no inherent draw in the deck. There's like, do Evo, you get DP, you're just there, and then you maybe draw a card and try to find what you can, but you're just sitting there. So like, I wanted options that like, if I'm in a bad position, I can keep myself tapped, explode into my 6. I'll give you 6 memory, but I don't care because Tyrant puts out a Shiva or puts out a Grand Quagga, and I just sit there, pretty much telling you, you're not hitting my security. The Kunemon is really nice though, because I was on this tech for BT15 bugs, because you need consistency. There's so much you just don't have access to anything. So reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add any green, which mimics BT15 Biomon, allowing you to get anything, and then you're tapping yourself, which is fine as long as you have the Kabuterimon allowing you to evil up. That way, you don't get bounced by anything because you're immune to Digimon's effects at a level 4, and then you just ace into Mega Kabu, and you have like 10 KDP. Like if they were 4-on-4, they die. If they're 5-on-4, they die. You have to be the Mega or nothing else. The list looks very consistency. I just HPD is such a win more card that like I'm tired of seeing cards at 1. Just ban it or just tell me that I'm bad at the game and that I should quit. Like, don't do the like. No, it's at 1 though. Just tell me I'm bad at the game. Just tell me I wasn't winning anyway.
Yeah, like I think
You say that, and yet you've been topping with Mirage.
Yeah, Mirage has one thing stopped, and it's because they had to hit it or aces wouldn't exist. I can bounce your 4. Where's your ace? Even then, we have that on Mirage. Bounce your 5. Either way, continue. Zan, you're saying something.
Yeah, so I think like the big thing that's like at least still keeping Tyrant in the meta sphere compared to a lot of the other decks is the protection sometimes is just incredibly hard to deal with. Plus the defensive tools between like Izzy and Metalife being able to like redirect into your suspended Digimon, which Tyrant can super boost himself. There's a ton of ways to DP boost. Like, that's why they're running Exermon is just another way to try to DP boost, except you get more DP for having a wider field, which he kind of is trying to set up and facilitate. Like, it's not the greatest, but that's what Argamon is, like, also kind of helping with. So I think, like you said, the deck just seems like it's making sense in terms of just going for a very clean, efficient build. And this one, like you pointed out, isn't on piercing. It is more on the defensive control side of things, which is why they're running Cherry instead of Blossomon, is so that you have another way to redirect into a suspended Digimon. So I like the ideas that this deck is playing with. It's just, unfortunately, with a big defensive deck being one of the better decks, and Magnamon is clearly better than Tyrant based on the protections that it's playing with, the numbers that it could hit, how fast and aggressive it could be at the same time. It just puts Mirage players in a position where it's just like, if I'm already teching, like, if you're already teching your deck to not be blocked or to not, like, or to, like, just bypass the opponent's defenses, even though you're redirecting, there's still a lot of cards that just are able to try to be used to out Tyrant. Which is unfortunate. He's just suffering from, like, oh, I'm just the second best defensive deck, and because there is a best defensive deck, other aggro decks are trying to get around me. Oops.
So in theory, his protections are slightly better because they require less investment on you. Like,
yeah, you
right
just need
now,
to be suspended.
One of the big tech pieces, right, that Numamon's running for Magnamon is the EX5 Edamon to like force an attack, and then they are able to build a big like Valk blocker, and because you're not immune at the time, the Valk is able to easily trade with you. But you can't really do that with Tyrant. Tyrant base is 14, so his numbers are already just better than Magna's if you're not triggering the Magna effect, and he turns everything off. So like the Edamon tagged you with -3, forced you to attack. You really don't care. You swing. And so then it immediately drops the -3, and you're bigger than Valk, even if they go into Valk on that turn.
Yeah. Like there is the one case exception because it affects Magnamon too. You're not immune to the forced attack the moment your turn starts, But as you said, the moment I just put myself sideways, I could care less. Please, you just made me waste my egg. I really could care less.
Yeah, and I think like even though Grand Kawagamon isn't necessarily like the world's greatest ace at trying to deal with a lot of problems efficiently, it's still a very strong card because it does give tamer removal, which is still important, and it still suspends stuff even though it doesn't like hard locks them down. They could still unsuspend if they have effects to allow them to unsuspend. So like they could get around it, but the fact that the deck is just very clean and efficient at just being a really solid defensive control deck still again is like why I put this into like the metasphere in terms of competitively viable decks. I think we're going to see a little bit more Tyrant, but I think like Tyrant numbers are probably going to be behind Magnamon numbers.
Its biggest problem is that like in the Numemon matchup, like where everything else is fine, it's just that
It
Monze
outpaces.
X
Yeah. Oh, Monze X, yeah.
it just kind of beats you because the fact that its DP does last through the turn.
And if you stack two of them, like you just need to have one stack, and then you kill Tyrant through two Monze X's.
Yeah.
Because you make the first Monze puts out another body, putting you at like Monze's what, minus 3k or minus 2k per body?
Minus Monze X is Monzemon from RB1 is
we can't
minus
count that.
3.
We can't count that. Like say they don't have a target, or like you're
Monze
unaffected by it.
X
And
I
it only
believe
has
is
to be
2k per
Yeah,
per
it's
body.
2k per body.
So you're 4 there. The moment you go in the second stat, like what you dropped is like Numemon. The moment that goes into Monze, you put out another body. That is another 9 plus.
You're off because it's 2 per, so it's 6. So it's
Six,
only 10.
10k. Yeah. You need to have one more body on the board. So you have to have like the
Mhm.
rookie promote with you, then drop them on, like do the
Yeah.
Monze. Evo.
Well, that's where
Uh,
like the Ukomon spam like just really helps facilitate that type of playstyle because like you could just literally just sit on a field of Ukomon in this type of a matchup. There's not a lot outside of the higher levels that are actively suspending you down and getting rid of your bodies. So you literally just sit on a ginormous field and then you just Monzai exit away and then watch the opponent cry and fold.
Yeah, because it's like the minimum number you need. You need one rookie with you because you make Monze X with one rookie on the board. You're minus 4. You make another Monze X off the.
Well, you should be minus 6 because you should play something out with the Monze.
Minus 6 because Monze plays a Numemon. Numemon that into a proto form. You become Monze X on 4. You spit out your 5th body 5. Then you get a minus 10 there, so you're minus 14, and that does kill the Tyrant.
Yeah, because all your DP falls off, as well as you don't have the suspension based
But
DPs.
in EX6, if we get it's not box toppers. I know we already knew EX6 box toppers. In BT17, when we get promo Mega Kabuterimon, because you have evade, you can technically declare evade to. You would still die through DP deletion, but you're allowed to legally trigger evade first, and then everything falls off, and then you're fine.
Well, it wouldn't help you too much other than being at that 5 stage. It means your 5s get to live, but
I mean, you're 5, and then you just go into Tyrant after, and then because you are still suspended, bounce, put whatever I want on the board.
But I'm saying it doesn't help the Tyrant if you're already the Tyrant, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like just with how good Numemon is as a deck and how good its efficient removal is, especially for actually being able to bypass a lot of protections, because of the stickiness of their abilities. Like that's partially why Numemon is like propelling itself to be the number 1 deck in this current format. I'm gonna get into those numbers in just a moment. But yeah, so Tyrant just suffers from the byproduct of I'm already countering Magnamon, so I already counter Tyrant at the same time, incidentally. And then the last unique deck, I'm saying unique because these are the decks that so far don't really have a lot of like results in these 3 events comparing it to the rest of the format so far. So we have Red Hybrids as like the last big unique deck from this event specifically. And a lot of people probably wrote Red Hybrids off because, you know, what's it going to do against Magnamon as just the big argument. It's just like, yeah, I could Emperor, not kill your Digimon, swing, get my 1 attack in, and then check your security, and then I can't attack anymore, and now you're immune, so I no longer can really do anything. But this just goes to show that again, the extra Ukamons are helping with the overall consistency because they are on the 2-2 Ukamon split. It makes sense that this isn't on a Ukamon, but they completely dropped the BT4 searcher for the other Ukamon just because, you know, they also are running the Louis to be able to use to try to cycle through their raising area faster to promote more aggressive gameplay early on to try to start steamrolling and snowballing. Then they just have the classic red hybrid package. Everything is basically there. They're just spicing it up with Garuda Ace, which some decks were already running. This deletes blockers, which is pretty big, because if Magnamon doesn't have any protection, he swings, you could Garuda Ace, get rid of it. So
even then on your turn, the protection is quote unquote worn off or anything, you can just tag it.
Right, and you're also playing a Takuya for free, which is really good because one of the deck's biggest problems is outside of on delete play a tamer, with your level 3 and your level 4 inheritable, you don't actually have a whole lot of ways to play Takuya efficiently. So Garuda just opens up that opportunity, and then they also are splashing in Velk Ace, probably to go on top of the Garuda, but if you're also trying to like make cute cheeky Alta plays and you don't have the Emperor, you could try to bait them into a Valk play as well. So it's just, again, more efficient removal, and the surprise ace factor that they just probably aren't expecting. Especially since they're running Omnimon, because Omnimon can go over the Valk and protect the fact that it's an ace, sort of, and still try to maintain the body, so it's at least sticky. Omnimon mostly is just a game finisher. But if anyone's wondering where the deck space is being made up to be able to run some of these tech cards, they're really reducing their options. Most decks usually run 2 to 3 Gravity Crushes. This is running 1. Most decks usually run 3 Atomic Infernos. This is running 2. Most decks run at least one other option. So sometimes they'll run 2 to 3 Crimson Blaze. So if they're running 3, there's one option slot gone. Some people were running like Trident Gaia as well, just to try to counter Tyrant and other stuff. So like they're just opting not to, and they're just putting that space into the more aggressive tools and some other slightly different control tools with the aces. So that's where all of the space is basically being made up from. Everything else is just red hybrids, nothing different. And that brings us to the last big event, which actually was a big event. Let me swap over to here and then go to here. So we have the Play TCG Online Regionals. This is the big one because this is actually a big event. For this event specifically, well, not this event specifically, for using events going forward, starting with this event, Bandai wants to have all the rounds play out, regardless if there's an undefeated by round 6, 7, 8, whatever. They don't care. You're playing all 9 rounds all the time now for big regional events. So this was the, I believe, like cap or close to the cap at 359 players. 9 rounds is Swiss. And this is probably the results people were expecting to see a lot more of, where it is 8 Numemon, 3 Yellow Vaccine, which are Magnamons, 2 Mirages, 1 Blue Flare, 1 Ulforce, and 1 actual blue Magnamon. So, yeah, Numemon kind of just dominated this event, and they're all basically almost running, for the most part, mostly same stuff with all of the Numemon tech. There's not really a whole lot to actually like explore and play with at this point. But yeah, this event is definitely the most polarizing compared to the others that we've seen. And this just goes to show in the larger events, like the larger events that we get, stuff like Numemon that actually is insane and stuff like Yellow Vaccine that actually is that good, that's what's going to be floating to the top. Not necessarily some of these cute, cheeky decks that we've seen, because all 3 of the other events that we've seen were under 100 players. So that allows the space for these types of decks to actually exist, whereas in bigger events, that's not exactly the case. So we do have Ulforce and Blue Flares that we could talk about as the actual unique decks, and I'm using unique in quotation marks because a lot of what we've seen isn't really unique. Spoiler alert. It's just what we've already seen or what we've taken from Japan. So as far as the blue flare list, it's blue flare with Ukamon in it. I don't know what else to say. Oh, and you also have a couple of aces. So, yeah, like that just goes to show how good Ukamon is, because Numimon's on 8 Ukamon. So what other decks can run 8 Ukamon? Blue Flare can run it. Zudo Ace is just a good, like, if I need to hard slam a card just to remove a body, it's a pretty good card at doing so, and then that opens up the opportunity for Vike Ace. On top of the fact that Metal Greymon's a level 5, you got 2 of them with Rush, so you're going to be swinging, ideally with jamming multiple checks. They try to swing into you or do something. Vike. Like, I don't know what else to say. Vike is actually kind of surprisingly in colors. So if you don't have the Kirihan Nene Tamer, if you were running black options, Vike also gives you that opportunity to run them. But this
Speaking of which, that's a good point. There's no connect. I guess you don't want to bottom deck the Ukos with the connections.
Yeah, like there's too many things that it could miss because of the Ukamons now that you just don't even care. Plus
it doesn't hit
Ukamon.
enough cards.
Yeah, plus Ukamon, the new one, is also digging for like the same type of thing, but more. You just don't get the benefit.
In addition, you just don't have the play cost reduction for a free Metal Greymon later.
Yeah, but you just don't really care. If you could just aggress with the Ukamon, it's like almost the same difference.
Exactly.
And because you could be super aggressive with the Ukamons, it really puts extra pressure on the opponent to try to respond, and then that's where this deck takes advantage of that, where it's just like, oh, you have more than 2 Digimon because I'm putting pressure on you and you need to do something, otherwise you're going to die. Cool. Now I'm even stronger. And that's where this deck really excels at. It's nice to see that they are also on Full Metal Blaze. So you and me, Nikki, we're not crazy that Full Metal Blaze is good.
I like Full Metal Blaze just because in this meta, especially against like Dragon mode, like say I burst mode and then partitions happens, I can still Full Metal Blaze, put them back at their hands. I just don't like burst moding like a Dragon mode, an Ace, a Paildramon, and like Magnamon, just because you have him back in your hand. I didn't want him there. I want him to the bottom of the deck. That's why I like Blaze. Put that problem child back at the bottom of your deck. I don't want to deal with him.
Yeah. And then the other deck that was unique to this event was an All-Force. So I know Huang had an interview with the person who topped with this All-Force, and it seems like it makes a lot of sense in terms of what it's doing. It's basically half All-Force, half Magnamon. And if Magnamon already was that stupid, think of where else he could go into. Oh, what's running Vmon? All-Force. What's basically like an OTK deck that is similar to Mirage, except has more defensive tools? Oh, All-Force again. Like, it seems like it's just a no-brainer on the combining the two, because the Magnamon stuff isn't really taking up that much deck space that the deck wasn't needing. So it's like, looking at old All-Force lists, they really weren't playing that crazily into their level 4s. Like, it's mostly just, can I get into All-Force? Do I have Vmons? That's it. Like, they weren't really trying to do anything crazy with their level 4s, and you even have an in-archetype level 4 with Gold Vidramon, so that incentivizes the use of Magnamon even more.
So the one thing, though, about that Gold Vidramon is that you still have to climb all the way up to a 5 and then go into Magna X, because Magna X can't just go on top of that Gold Vidramon. They're not playing Awakening.
Yeah, but like,
There's
imagine
that, but
imagine
the fact
Arrow.
That you can, exactly, you can just arrow into it, and then you can become a Magna X on top and have the protections is nice. The main thing, of course, is just that the 4 copies of ST Magnamon, good old ST17 Magnamon, is just such a powerful card that, you know, if your deck has the colors and you don't care that much about what your level 4s happen to be, like, there's honestly not a reason not to run it.
Yeah, I mean, the deck's low end is all Vmons anyway, so it's not like you're actually paying that much extra, and then on
It's
top
still
of that,
like a 3 cost for
yeah,
Evo for champions, which, uh, math tells us is bad, but it's such a high-performing card that, like, realistically you don't care.
right, especially since this deck is playing Davis and Ken, to be able to spit out a Vmon for free, which ideally the best one is going to be the Searcher Vmon, so that way you could just keep searching almost every single turn if they don't get rid of it. And then if they do hit a Magnamon in security, and you are sitting on that Vmon, or just a Vmon, then you could just Digivolve into it for free, and then just on top of the Digivolve, Source Strip and potentially Bounce. And then there was mention in the video of Gold Veedramon being able to use in combination with Rena to trigger during the opponent's turn, which normally only is able to trigger during your turn. So there's like some funny niche interactions with just a lot of the other cards that are flowing inside of the deck. And it's a very well tested and well crafted deck, and I like seeing this type of creativity, but it just is Magnamon. Like, Magnamon just sticks out like a sore thumb, where it's just like anything running Ukamon, Magnamon, just is immediately already in a better position than most other decks in the entire format. Like, I don't know if anyone actually saw the lists, like all of these unique lists, because this is a podcast. If you go watch the video form or go look up on Eggman events, all of these deck lists are there. You will start to see those trends where it's like you're either blue, you're running Magnamon, or you're running Ukamon, and that is the meta in a nutshell. Like, it's pretty sad. Either that, or you have to be something insanely strong, or very one-dimensional in order to try to like beat out whatever is using Magnamon or Ukamon. So it's just like those are the meta-defining like cards and decks.
I want to bring up a deck that I played against in this regional on my run. I ran into a gentleman playing a Gabubond list, but in his list he was running the blue-green new Vmon armor from BT16, the Togemarumon, whatever.
Yeah.
But basically it was also a way to like bridge into Magna X antibody. And I was telling him after our match, I was explaining to him, like, as he was kind of like walking me through some of the play patterns and stuff. I was like, yeah, but since your fours don't like really matter, other than like Yetso's nice. But at that point, like, why not just be playing the ST Magnamon to like make your bridges even easier?
Yeah, because doesn't Magnamon just Digivolve for free off of any level 3 when it's checked in security?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes for free. So
Yeah,
as
free.
long as you have a blue rookie, you go for free, and you got the Digivolve, and then you get the when Digivolving.
Yeah, that's really strong.
Yeah, and he
If
was
that's
just
if you're
talking-
going that direction.
Yeah. But since he was already running a bunch of the armors and everything, I was like kind of just talking to him about like, yeah, that'll probably make it easier if like that's an actual way you want to go, and then that also means that you don't have to devote deck space to like Awakening or something to help bridge easier, since the Bond deck just doesn't play that many 5s. Like, you mainly are playing like maybe the 3 Zudos, and like that's about it.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone knows this. I generally do meta breakdowns. So I have an Excel sheet that I write up at work, and I basically throw all of this data into an Excel spreadsheet. I understand that I'm missing one event from. I'm missing the PPG Online Win-A-Box event from my data. I'm excluding it because it was top 8 and not top 16, and I want to try to keep everything consistent. But so far, this is just the breakdown of the timeline on where the meta is, and I use that and convert it into actual percentages. And right now, out of 3 events, 48 decks, Numemon is 16 of those, which is exactly a third of the entire meta spread. Mirage is actually in second place with 16%. So Mirage is still good, literally because it has one card that it teched into. Well, it technically got 2. So it got a card that helps give it jamming, so you have more consistency on having jamming to make your attack safe. But you have the level 5 that basically says, I can't be redirected, and that's literally what's keeping Mirage in the meta. Literally just that card, which is why it loses out and gets beaten by Ace Digimon, because if I can't attack, I'm missing damage, and if I'm missing damage, it's slowing me down and it's making things harder, and if I can't respond properly, then it literally just starts to crumble at the seams. But that doesn't stop it from being a very good anti-meta deck, regardless, which is why it's in second place. Third place is Yellow Vaccine Magnum Onyx, because, Magnum Onyx, stupid. Patamon, TK, Emissary, all go in it. It's just one of the faster engines of the game. And then right after that, in fifth place, we have normal blue Magnum Onyx, which is just basically the same thing, just in blue. So it's a little bit slower, a little bit more consistent, but a lot more aggressive. And then everything else is kind of just fighting for slots. Imperial and Lugamon and Rapid are the next contenders, and they're doing okay. And then, that's just the start of the format. So I don't know how many more decks are actually going to be able to enter the format. I know this format's going to be a little bit on the shorter side because EX6 is right around the corner, but EX6 is basically BT16 2.0.
It doesn't really add too much,
It does not at all.
Meta into the pool. The only thing that we think realistically is going to see any play is the Demon Lords, and they're just a popular archetype. They're another one of the Mega Zoo decks, and their biggest issue, of course, is that they kind of just fold to a Floodgate rookie.
Which Numemon is playing Floodgate rookies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're playing that Chikurimon already to help protect themselves from Death X, so, they don't really care.
Yeah.
It's kind of the problem. Mastymon, as much as Guardian wants to believe in his dream girl, she's not doing anything.
No, neither is Ragnalordmon, unfortunately.
I was testing out the Ragnalord stuff, and the Ragnalord stuff is very funny. The fact that you can build, really subpar stacks, and if you have your new option card, anything happens to that, sucky stack, and you can just spit out a Mega level Digimon and then go immediately into a Ragna Ace is pretty funny, but kind of has to happen that way. They do have a pretty cool, protection piece that's generic that you can just run in any other deck. Kind of fun. I was also trying to cope on the Blue Birds, but the Blue Birds just are missing a lot of stuff. Even if you're trying to incorporate, a lot of the old fish engines and stuff like that, I don't think that they're where they need to be. They're missing, one or two pieces.
Yeah, and I know Mirage just ends up using the level 5 in some instances. It's just a good tech card.
Yeah, because you can take advantage of the Biomon, or you can try and run that Ragna Black level 5. Or decent enough.
Yeah.
Diaboromon is kind of cute, but I do think that it needs the upcoming support from 17 for it to, really do anything interesting.
What Diaboromon needs is basically just a new tamer. He has a lot of really good and broken old cards that are just very poorly designed and future-proofing, but the fact that he doesn't have anything to actually tie the deck together to make it cohesive is the biggest problem with the card, and for most decks that's actually the role of the tamer, and we just still have Arata as the only tamer, and he's working off of old text. So he's not even the greatest tamer. He's just the only tamer.
Still decent, right? To get the token when you become Diaboromons is fine. It would definitely be nicer to get them, at different points in the lineup. But the new pieces, I think, do enough. Because you get an Infirmon that, when a token gets played, I think it's on either turn. It's an all turns effect. As long as the token comes down, you get a D-Digivolve, and then the new Diaboromon, has deletion based on the number of Diaboromons you have. I think it affects
it's not bad.
Cost or something like that.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's just lacking still. Even with the new support, it's still just lacking.
And then I do kind of think that other than the fact that the clocks of the end spawn you a token, I think they're kind of a trap. And I'd much rather at that point just play something I'm trying to remember what it's called, but Spider Shot or something, the 4-cost D-Digivolve and play a token?
That's Supreme Cannon, I think.
Is that one Supreme Cannon?
Or not
Okay,
Supreme Cannon, whatever his
I
cannon
know that there's
was.
two.
Catastrophe
There's
Cannon.
Catastrophe Cannon, yeah, that's it.
there's two of them. There's like something like Spider Shoot, and then there's
Spider
like the other
Shot
one.
is a 3-costed Digivolve 1.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Cannon
it's...
Catastrophe Cannon is a 4-costed Digivolve 2, and if you control Geobormon, you would get the
You
token.
get a token. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that would end up being better than playing Clock of the End. But you know, if you really want to go for the brand new Digimon Exodia, go for it. I'm not gonna poo-poo on anybody's fun.
Yeah, but the clock comes out in BT17, so it's
Yeah.
like whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, EX6 doesn't really seem like it's going to be changing a whole lot, so I hope everyone is excited for 4 more months of Numemon being the best deck, because, spoiler alert, the 2 best decks from the last format was Numemon and Mirage, and so far, that really hasn't changed. It's just, there's actually a contender with the different Magnamon decks and the decks running Magnamon. And then, like, sure, some people are saying, like, oh, Ukamon shouldn't get banned because it's enabling these types of decks to be successful. And I'm like, yeah, but it's being successful in the wrong ways because Ukamon is so stupid. Like, I don't know. I hate Ukamon so much. But yeah, so that's pretty much the meta. In terms of like the actual top decks, yeah, it's so far basically just those 8 from the first PPG. It's just like, oh yeah, that's probably just the best well-rounded summary of the meta I could have just, listed off in terms of decks. There's still a lot of room for discovery in terms of trying to find anti-meta tech to let other decks do well, but at this point, I honestly think with how short the format is and with almost nothing new coming in the next EX set, because Angels is also looking to be pretty strong with its protections and whatnot, but I don't see it beating like Numemon. Like it just doesn't seem like it could do that.
Also, for the most part, gonna have to use the vaccine engine, and if you're playing a vaccine deck right now, you probably built Magna.
Right, so why are you hopping off of Magna to play a worse
Angels,
vaccine deck? Like, yeah.
But if you were on vaccines before and you didn't want to spend the money on Magna, go ahead and play Angels. Angels will be fun for you.
Yeah, Angels definitely looks like it's like compared to a lot of the other vaccine decks that we saw in like BT15, there was just no cohesiveness in terms of what's able to do well, and I feel like Angels is at least trying to round out that rough edge where it's just like, this is what Yellow Vaccine Angels wants to do. So at least it's got that going for it. It does seem pretty decent, but again, yeah, if you're already playing the best Yellow Vaccine deck, you're already on Magnamon. And why swap off of Magnamon, which is a better card than Dominimon?
Bro, even Shaco is playing Magnamon X.
Yeah, I mean, just the decks that are doing well are literally the decks that play Ukamon and play Magnamon, and then the decks that try to counter it. Those two specifically, like that is the meta in a nutshell. And I don't know if by the end of EX6 we're gonna have as diverse of a format as we did with BT15, because boy, that was diverse. But I honestly don't think so. And I think like this meta isn't, at least to me as a player, I'm not looking forward to the meta. And maybe BT17 kind of fixes things. It doesn't look like it fixes a whole lot. In fact, it seems like it only makes certain problems even worse. And certain solutions like worse for the better for the worst ways. So I don't know.
BT17 at least looks fun. There's some like charming little decks that like I don't expect to be meta, but I think are at least fun.
Yeah, I mean, like there's always fun in like some of the
I'm excited
offsets.
about Omni Ace. Like it's pretty cool that we finally have a normal Omnimon that does DNA that isn't one of the other one of the other Omni variants. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's always exciting stuff with each set. It's just whether that's actually going to have an impact. And the fact that, like, right now, taking a look at Japanese data, the fact that it has minimal impact, like, basically what's already good just gets better, and then what's new just doesn't do anything, is pretty sad.
remember, like, we see the data that the Lugamon gets to stay in the meta, but it changes formats. So, like, you get to play the Takami Kazuchi, and that's an entirely different deck. Like, you play that differently.
I mean, it's still an OTK deck using Lucamon.
Uh, yeah, but
It's just
like,
doing
its
the
setup
OTK
is
differently.
different.
Yeah.
Like, you no longer need to worry about, like, did I at least see a single Rush Gatomon, or do I have a DNA in hand to get me there? Like, the deck now kind of can do it all, and some of its play patterns are, like, cuter, but now you need a big splashy, a big fancy secret rare to play the deck, so that, there's that. Um,
I mean, I still think, like, even without Takami Kazuchi, like, Lugamon still looks good. Like, Lugamon was already just strong because he was just one of the better OTK decks that could hit numbers that some other decks just wish that they could hit in order to be competitively viable. Because, like, the other big thing, like, what Japan was saying for BT16 was this is DP Wars, and for the most part, that's kind of true. Like, DP matters more in this meta more than it's ever been in the past. Like, yeah, sure, I could be funny haha and say my Greymon can hit 21k, but like now it actually needs to hit 21k. But the problem with Greymon is it's too slow to compete, so it's not actually viable anymore, which is a shame. And it's not like Ukamon can be run or the training cards can be ran to like help speed it up, which again is a shame, which is why that deck isn't really doing well, even though Raid is really
it
good.
has all the tools in theory. Like, you have your Raid, your Unsuspends, you have Piercing, you have, like, one of the best options ever printed in the card game.
Yeah, which is why it wouldn't surprise me to see like Jespon be able to top. He topped once last format, and now that he can use Magnum
You
on
can
X,
use the Magna X.
uh,
You don't, in theory, need to. Like, the protections it affords you are, in essence, about the same as what you were getting from Gankamon. So, like, if you don't already own it and are planning to play Jessamon, I don't think that you, in theory, need it. But if you, really want to try it out, go for it.
yeah, but Jespon is definitely filling that Greymon fix in terms of what it's trying to do, which is funny because it also has its own consistency issues. But yeah, this format
But those
is
start to get smoothed over a little bit as we move through. Like, come the next starter decks, you get some cool pieces with the puppet support, since all of your sister mons are puppets. So you'll have cool stuff to look forward to if you're a Just Mon player.
that is true. That is very true. I keep forgetting that they're puppets.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so BT16, we still have a while's way, and then we have the transition into EX6, which is BT16 Part 2. We'll see how that unfolds. We're going to be stuck in that for a while. And how are you guys feeling about BT16? I'm already lukewarm. I already wasn't super thrilled with this format.
Not
And
great.
yeah, I'm not after playing in a couple of events, I do not like this format. I'm going to be flat out honest. I don't. I hate it.
I think the competitive format's a little unhealthy, and I think that's again a standard EN problem, where best decks emerge, and that's all people want to play because winning's fun, and I need to win for this hobby to feel like it's worth my time and money. But there's not much that can be done about that. Like, I do think though that the quality of fun pet decks, though, that like the 16 meta gave us is pretty great. Like, birds actually like feels cool, and like I think had a decently placed deck appear in this last regional, which is very cool to see. I enjoyed my birds. I have fun with Sylphie. Like, when I sit down and play that, like, there's lots of pretty cool decks right now for locals. Like, I know Nikki's on some Myotismon stuff, and the Myotismon loops, when they happen, are pretty funny to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my Otismon is just really slow at setting it up because I had a locals person also on my Otismon and another locals person also on Sylphie. And I lost to Sylphie on Imperial because I misplayed because I'm learning Imperial.
Oh, as well as their Valk just eats the other DNAs alive.
Yeah, it eats Partition alive, it eats DNA alive. Like, Valk is just such a strong card also.
Mhm.
Like, I would probably put Valk in that contention spot of, like, what is currently defining the meta. So it's just like Magnamon, Valk, Ukamon. That is, and then the decks that are trying to counter that or the decks that use those. That seems like that's definitely where the meta is, and like you said, I don't necessarily think it's unhealthy, but I do like all of the fun smaller decks that are just present and are able to be made and are possible.
Like Goldramon X, I think is a very fun card, and like it has a pretty cool deck that, can get like triple swings out, and like you get to recover like 2 cards in that loop. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But to kind of wrap things up, I know store regionals is something Bandai has been really shy on talking about. And by talking about, I mean they said it once a long time ago. We got an update a long time ago, and now we're like a week or two out from when we should be expecting to see them, and we're not seeing them. So, like, it's very interesting on what is going on, because this is supposed to be a really big deal for stores, but you might have some insight on that. Not insider insight, just rumor mill insight that this is news to me as well, Headless.
Oh, so was talking with some people that actually run the shops and have to go through the application process for the events, right? So normally how that process kind of goes is, if you're a store, you buy product from Bandai. Buying product from Bandai gets you the ability to also apply for events. So you basically how it ends up working though is that Bandai sends you a little notice and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna run this event. Would you be interested in running it in your store?" And the problem there becomes is that a lot of the stores, that doesn't mean it much to them, because Bandai just doesn't give them a lot of information. They tell them the name of the event, and that is it. That's the only context they get for it. And then it becomes, sure, like, yes, I'd like to run it, and then Bandai, crunches the numbers on what it is that your store brings in, so that they know how many kits that they're gonna even, like, decide to deem to give you. And then that still has to go through distribution, and just the distributor has to actually have those kits and has to actually give them to you, as opposed to giving them to somebody else. So
yeah, because I could at least confirm.
Normal issues.
Yeah, I could confirm at least that, because usually when stores get their new tournament kits is when they actually get the new wave of product. And then that wave of tournament kits is supposed to last them until the end of the month or whatever, based on how many kits that they get. So that all seems to check out.
Yeah, but the issue with the store regionals is that the fact that they didn't tell anybody initially that for it to be a regional level event, you have to have judges of a certain level, and that level is like basically like one of the highest levels that the judges can be in the Digimon card game.
The problem with that rank of judge is the fact that to be a level 1 judge, you have to basically go to 50 events and get a positive review while judging. Because if the head judge that's currently the rank 1 there gives you a negative, you're already off the table for that until you can actually prove that I can give good results.
And most stores just don't have level 1 judges, like staffed or as a player that is going to the event and can judge the event. And so that's the biggest problem is, so Bandai just wasn't forthcoming about the need for level 1 judges, and a lot of stores are failing the application to be able to run store regionals because they don't have a high enough level judge for the event.
The funny thing is, when I asked about that in the judges Discord, they said that Bandai is going to give stores the tools to be able to secure a level 1 judge, but that doesn't necessarily seem like it's exactly lining up, because if the number of level 1 judges are still really small and all of these events are happening at the same time, there's no way they're going to have enough level 1 judges for every store that even tried to apply. So there's already going to be a shortage on judges just from that prospect alone. And as a person who has taken and failed the judge test, I know how stupid it is just to get the level 0 judge to status, because Bandai tries in their judge test, one, it's timed, which I hate time tests. I'm a person who never has been good with time tests. And two, they use the most convoluted language they could humanly possibly come up with for really bad English to try to trick you into the wrong answer, because they're not exactly trying to tell you what the solution or like what the problem even is. And the solutions will all sound exactly the same with like ever so slight word changes, and it's just it's a really dumb test. It's not a test of knowledge, it is a test of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
passing
we'll
that and
see
being level
pretty
1
soon.
status. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see
Passing
pretty
that.
soon how many actual events end up on like TCG Plus, and from there we'll kind of get a better picture of what actually ended up happening. Because that's kind of the problem right now is Bandai's not been too forthcoming with everything about it, and it's always just been an issue like for the stores like figuring out what's up, because Bandai being a Japanese company means that they do things very weird. Like a lot of the times, like I said, the store owners, if they're not like kind of in it to win it for this card game in particular, they don't know what any of the things mean. Like, because Bandai will come up with all these wacky names like Evo Cup versus like the standard store tournaments versus store champions. Like, it's all gobbledygook to the owner at the store, who has to go through the application and submit like how many players they think they're gonna have, as well as everything to run these events, and then they don't even know what they are. Like, they don't know if it's a sealed event, if like they're being expected to like have side product like on hand that they're gonna need for the event, or if they're being provided the requisite product for an event. So it's all just kind of funky wonky.
Yeah, and store owners already have a lot on their plate with a lot of other card games, so like I totally get it. And even then, like just between Bandai games, it's just like, oh, what's the difference between an Evo Cup and a Treasure Cup, and what's the difference between like I don't even know if Dragon Ball Super has like their own special variant of whatever, but the fact that they're
They
all
have
using different terminology is,
Oh,
but
the One Piece is the most egregious. Like, so One Piece's like pre-release events aren't even called that. They get called like something goofy that doesn't tell you that they're like a sealed event in the title alone. And like I said, Bandai doesn't give descriptions for what the events are. They just tell you what the title of the event is. Like,
Mhm.
so it's on you to somehow parse out like what that even is. And the problem becomes is that you have to make these applications well before like the actual public announcements end up being. So like right now you can go onto the Bandai site and you can see what the tournament packs are, but when you as a store owner were having to do that application to decide to do that event, you didn't have that information. It's not information you had.
yeah, that's extremely like that's wonky. That's in my perspective, that's wrong. Like that doesn't help. Like no wonder why stores have such a difficult time with Bandai as a company is because they pull this stuff where it's just like other card games probably just make it a lot easier and a lot more streamlined, and Bandai's out here trying to be goofy about hiding information or like because obviously certain store owners would probably tell the community certain things, so maybe they're trying to do it to hide it. But like again, I'm a person who firmly believes in good communication can solve 99.9% of problems, and Bandai is just really bad at communicating things, like really bad. So whether store championships actually take off and or like store regionals actually take off and whether they flop, it's mostly going to be Bandai's fault whether it actually happens or not. We'll see. We'll know in probably a week or two
They'll
what's
definitely have
actually
to
happening.
figure it out, because so we'll see how many events actually end up going live on TCG Plus. But like realistically, they needed these to fill out Nats, because Nats is not going to be open this year. It's invite only again. But as a card game, Digimon had a lot of its events truncated. So like the event calendar was normally a lot fuller, and more people were allowed to participate in regionals. But all of our events are we have less of them, and they're all capped at lower numbers. So
Yeah, because even just like looking at their current event schedule, we basically have we have like nothing in January, and we have like one event in July, and that is pretty much it. It's in terms of regionals. In Ultimate Cup is basically in that same type of camp where it's just like, okay, we have like maybe one Ultimate Cup in June, and then one Ultimate Cup in July, and then like it just seems like right now we're hitting a giant dry spell after just like having a lot of really decent events. But yeah, there is a reduction of events. At least it feels like there is compared to previous years, and maybe that's just Bandai spreading themselves too thin. Maybe that's them not taking Digimon serious. I don't know. I'm not gonna try
It
to
seems
guess.
odd when you think about it. Like, this is also the year that we're planning to unify with the JP.
Technically next year's unification.
Right,
This
but-
year I think they're just letting it go and be like, all right, this year's kind of just boned. Let's just see what we can ride by with while we set up for next year.
Which is kind of disappointing. We'll see how everything goes. Like, hopefully, if the store regionals ends up kind of being a bust for them, they like roll out some new like kind of emergency stuff just to get more events and get more invites out in people's hands. Because otherwise, as far as it's looking, like the Nats is gonna be a fairly like small thing.
And that's kind of a shame considering last year it was pretty big and it was pretty hype. I'm not gonna lie, and
It was
The open-
honestly their
open Nats was
best
pretty cool.
time.
yeah,
Just to
But
give
yeah.
people like a fairer chance at stuff. Like,
because maybe they're gonna try to do like LCQs again. I don't know. The last time they tried that, it kind of didn't exactly go super well. It was like fine, but it was kind of awkward at the same time. But that year we also had store championships that gave out invites to the first.
Yeah.
So it's just like I don't know. Maybe they are gonna do some emergency stuff if this ends up flopping.
That's what I kind of see. If the whole regional thing doesn't end up working out, it might be that store champions in the like last couple months like give invites
Yeah, I could see that.
again.
But only time will tell. Bandai be Bandai, Bandai be awkward, and Bandai making things as
Bandai
hard as
be
they
tripping.
possibly can on everyone. And we're just trying to sit here and enjoy this fine game. So I think this is a good place to call it. Thank you everyone for coming out and listening. Thank you, Nikki, Guardian, Headless, for being my co-hosts for this episode. BT16 definitely is something that we've been messing around with a lot. I know the simulator is going to be updated soon, so definitely going to be getting some good gameplay footage of some wonky fun decks eventually when that update rolls out. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their day.